Hi everyone. In the last video we added some arm movement which allowed us to get to this point in our animation. In this video we're going to add in some more refined body movement. So what we're going to do is jump down to frame 1 and we're going to start to add in some torso twisting. So in my perspective view, I'm going to switch on wireframe on shaded, which is this little option here. You'll also find it under shaded or shading menu, wireframe on shaded, which is just here. And that's just going to add the lines onto our viewport like this. So basically what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the torso twisting is I'm talking about taking this handle and rotating it side to side. Okay, so something like this. Okay, now as I mentioned briefly in the last video, normally the way that we walk is our pelvis will twist in the same direction that our legs are kind of swinging in. So when our left foot is forward, our pelvis twists so that our left hip kind of rotates forward. Okay, and because of that the right hip goes backwards along with the right leg. Okay, but because our arms are going in the opposite direction, it means that our shoulders actually swing in the opposite direction to follow the arms. So when our left hip is forward, our left shoulder is actually pointed backwards a little bit. Okay, so with our characters we want to kind of mimic that as well. The problem with this character is that it doesn't have an independent shoulder twist. It's got this body twist, but it doesn't allow us to actually rotate the section where the arms join into the can. So we just need to make do with sort of that limitation. So we can kind of get around it a little bit by tweaking the positions of these shoulder controls. But the result that that has is it makes it look as though the arms are actually not solidly connected to the body. It kind of makes the arms slide around the surface of the character. So for this, you can kind of try it out, but you don't absolutely have to do this, okay? As far as the shoulder controls are concerned. All right, so what I'm going to do here is on frame 1, I'm going to rotate the can on the y-axis. And what I want to do is rotate it so that the leg that's sticking out towards the front, that we're twisting the can towards it, or in the same direction that that leg is moving, like this. And it doesn't have to be very far. I've gone about 14 degrees there. Something like that should be okay. But you'll notice that as the can rotates, this shoulder is pulling forwards, but that arm is actually backwards. All right, so that's going to cause issues with our movement. It's going to create a weird snapping movement in our arm if it's left like that, completely straight. And that's what I was talking about before, where we need to decide whether or not we're going to move these handles or not. All right, so I'm going to come into my channel box here, and I'm just going to round that down to minus 13 degrees in this case. Okay, just so it's an easy number to use. All right, I want to copy that position onto frame 33. So I just need to make sure I've extended my timeline back out to 33 frames. And I'm going to copy that keyframe, jump down to 33, and I'm going to paste it there. So I've got my paste menu just here, like that. Then I want to come back to frame 17 and I want to reverse that number because now the right foot is forward. So in this case, it's just going to be positive 13, like this. So now it's pointing back the other way. So if you scrub through the timeline, you'll actually see that twisting occurring. So, and it'll follow basically the foot, like that. Okay, now at this point we need to make a decision about how we're going to fix the arm movement, because we don't want the arm to ever kind of have this super straight angle, because you can see it kind of pulls weird. All right, so what we need to do is decide, are we going to fix it by going back through the whole timeline, every keyframe that we've got for the hand control, the wrist control, and are we going to move those positions where it's pulling straight like this? Okay, so we can do that, or what we can do is go through and keyframe the shoulder control and pull it back on particular keyframes. The problem with doing this, as I said, is that it's going to make this arm look like it's sliding around on the surface of the can. Okay, so you can do that if you want. I'm going to actually readjust the wrists because it'll give us a better result. Okay, so it's really just a way of just kind of loosening this arm up a little bit. So on frame 1, okay, I'm just going to jump into my side view here. On frame 1, I'm just going to grab the move tool and I'm going to pull the arm forward a little bit like this, just until it starts to bend a little bit. Okay, then I'm going to move back down onto 5 and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring that sort of forward a little bit and then just scrub between the two. Okay, just to make sure that there's no point where the arm goes completely straight. Note as well that the hand is still moving backwards from this position between 1 and 5. So I've still got that kind of delay movement in there, and that's working fine. Like that. So you just want to go right through the sequence. So you can see here, between 9 and 17, it's pulling completely straight. Okay, and then between 17 and 21 it loosens up again. So on frame 17, what I need to do is actually bring the arm back a little bit. So I'm going to grab the Z arrow and I'm just going to pull it back slightly until the arm relaxes a little bit like this. Okay, now check it on 9, that's okay, and then scrub through to 17 and just make sure that nothing goes completely straight. So that's okay. I'm then going to do the same thing between 17 and 21, so I'm just going to move this forward. And you can see at this point the hand is still moving forward and up, which is perfect. Okay, then we'll move down to 25. Once again, I'm just double checking that nothing goes completely straight. That's okay. And then 25 to 33, that's where it locks up again. But I know that 33 is going to be the same position as number 1. So I'm going to jump back to number 1, right click on that and copy it, and then jump back to 33 and just paste that in. So that's going to fix that issue. So now I'm not going to actually get anything that's pulling completely straight. Okay, now we might add in a keyframe here in 13 a little bit down the track, because at the moment the hand looks like it's kind of floating up here, so we might actually have one that's pulled down a bit more, but we can sort that out in a minute. Alright, let's do the same thing with the right hand control, this one just here, right wrist control. So I'm going to start at 1. Now in this case it can actually help if we hold down the spacebar, click on Maya and hit left view, so we've got the same view but from the other direction, that way we can see the arm. Okay, so just here on frame 1, I need to bring this back a little bit, just to the point where the arm starts to bend. So something like this. Okay, then we'll cut through to 5. And that's not really moving sort of up or forward a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just bring this up a bit like this, just to exaggerate that position. Okay, then it starts to drop back. And that's okay. There's no straight arm there. So down through here, that's okay. The arm is still bent. Then 17 to 21, that's where it straightens up to there. So we just need to bring this forward a little bit until the arm relaxes a little, like that. And then 21 to 25. That's okay. And then 25 to 33. Now don't forget, 33 is the one that's a duplicate of number 1. So really that should be pulling straight there because we need to copy number 1. So let's grab number 1. We'll right click and copy it. Jump down to 33 and paste that in. So now we're getting sort of this kind of freer movement. Now, the movement of the arm as it moves sort of from this position to this position, it's actually kind of going in a straight line. To kind of show you what I mean, I've got this object selected. If I jump across to the animation tab and I click on ghost selected, okay, you can see here it's ghosting the position of these rings. And as you scrub through, you can actually see that that arm, okay, from here to here, it's kind of swinging, but then from here all the way back through here, it's just going in a straight line. It's moving horizontally. When you're animating, you want to try and get things to go in curving motions. It adds a little bit more fluidity and makes the motion look nicer. So you can see that that's pretty much a straight line through there. So on frame 13, I'm going to just move this down like this. And you can have the arm almost straight, okay? Something like that. And you can see now the arm kind of swings like a pendulum. And it's going to give us a nicer kind of movement. Now, obviously here on 17, it's pulling completely straight. So what we would need to do here is bring it forward a little bit and maybe just bring it up a little bit like that, just to get a bit of a bend. So you can see there it's pulling completely straight there. So we can kind of nudge it up a little bit. Just make these kind of adjustments. Like that. So it's sort of the same thing through here. We need to bring sort of this up a little bit more, just so it doesn't pull completely straight through there. And then we run through, and it's the same thing again. So coming through here, you can see that it's still kind of a straight line. So on frame 29, I'm just going to move this down a bit. And in fact, I can do that for both of the arms at this point, because that's kind of the passing position almost. So I'm just going to bring those down like that a bit more. So now it's kind of swinging down, and then it swings down again, and then it ends up back here, and then it swings up a bit. So this one here, this frame 5, now I'm actually still talking about this arm, so I want to grab the left arm control here. This one here, I actually do want to bring this up a bit more. Like that. And I could probably rotate this around at this position just here. So it goes up and then it really starts to trail back through. Okay, something like that. So we just repeat that process over on this side. So I can turn ghosting on for that as well. It's probably a good idea to switch ghosting off for this wrist. So you can press this no ghosting like that, and then grab the other wrist and then just switch ghosting on again like that. So it's a case of just going through and looking for those kind of arcing movements. So like just here, that moves back, but this isn't kind of really dropping down low enough. So I'm just going to grab that position there. So that's okay. And that's pretty good. So it's not too bad. So you can see there we're sort of getting this arcing movement. Okay. Just hit Alt-V to stop the playback. And what we want to do is kind of add a little bit more body movement, sort of body rotation. So we've sort of gone through and removed the stretching on the arms caused by the, I've got to adjust this, caused by the torso from twisting. So I'm just going to move this back up a little bit. There we go. All right. Yeah, so we've added that in. Now what I want to do is add in a little bit of a sort of forwards backwards rocking movement. So it's just a bit of rotation. So when the character's in frame 1, okay, the heel has just touched the floor. So the character is technically moving forward at this point, okay? So what I want to do on frame 1 is have the character slightly bent backwards. Like this, just a little bit. Okay, so this is rotate X that's occurring here. All right, so then, as the character puts his weight forward, okay, the character is still bent back a little bit. So I'm just going to tweak him back slightly. But then as the foot hits the floor, between 5 and 9, the character's actually, his body's going to go forward a bit. Like this. So what you're going to get is the character sort of doing this kind of shape. And then, sort of back here at, we could probably go to 17. The character's going to right itself again. So the X rotation is going to go back to 0. Okay, but then it starts again. All right. So the rotation that's at the rotation on 1 is going to be the same as the rotation on 17. Okay, because now the foot's the other way around. So between this point here, it's going to have to swing back to 0 on frame 13, I should say. So we'll just type in 0 there. So that's sort of the midpoint. But then between 13 and 17, it's going to go back to -4 in this case. So I'm just going to set that as -4. Okay, we'll go to 17 and we'll type in -4 for the rotate X. Just there. And then on 33 as well, it's going to be the same. So -4X. Okay, now when the character tilts forward, okay, that's going to be on frame 25, and he's tilting forward 3.2. Okay, 3.265. So I'm just going to copy that number. Okay. So 17, character's foot plants. Okay, it's going to remain at -4 just there, so I'm just going to hit enter. And then on 25, that's where he leans forwards. I'm going to paste that number in and tilt him forwards. So he's going to come through. And then on 29, he's going to go back to 0. And then on 33, he kind of leans back again. So we need to get that number just there, which is -4. So I'm looking at this number. And we'll go -4 on 33. So now we're getting is sort of this jerking movement as the character steps. So I'm going to scrub through and make sure that that's actually working. So frame 1, he's backwards, he's leaning back. Frame 5, he's leaning back. Frame 9, he kicks forward, so his body's going forward as his foot hits the floor. 13, it rights itself back to normal. Then 17, as he leans forward, or he actually leans back to stick his foot out, he goes back into his leaning position. Okay. That then should be holding just there. So I'm missing a keyframe just here. So that should be -4. -4 just there. Then on 5, he goes forward like that. Then he returns back to 0 on 29. And then he's leaning again on 33. So if I hit Alt-V, I can play that back now. There we go. All right, that's pretty easy. So now all we need to do is get the character's kind of top half to kind of wobble when he walks. Okay. Now keep in mind as well, what we can do is actually rotate the character's body from side to side. Okay. And that's really just frame 1, 17, and 33. So, it's actually not on those frames. It's actually on the frames in between. So, the passing positions, frame 9 and frame 25, these are basically the points at which the character kind of goes side to side. So you can add this in if you want. So what I'm going to do is rotate the character on the rotate Z value, the blue handle. Okay, so I'm going to go to frame 1, and I'm just going to type in 0 for that. Okay, I'm not sure if that's actually taken. So if I hit escape, if I click on something else, go back to frame 1, yeah, you can see it hasn't keyframed that. So I'm just going to right click on rotate Z and hit key selected. I'm on frame 1 as well, by the way. All right. So then on frame 9, okay, the character's standing on its left leg. So what I want to do is rotate the character slightly towards the left, like this. All right. So it looks like he's actually lifting his foot off the floor. Now keep in mind this might mess up the arms, because the arms might be a little bit overstretched there. So we need to kind of be careful with this. What we can actually do is change this viewport to the front view. So if I hold down the spacebar, click on Maya and hit front view, we can now actually see how far we're rotating this. So I'm just going to grab the rotate tool. And I just need to keep an eye on the these arms to make sure they don't go completely straight. And it only needs a little bit of rotation. In this case, -2.3 or -2 would probably be okay. Yeah, -2 would do. Okay, so on 9, the rotation is -2. On 17, we need to set that back to 0. And then on 25, we need to set the rotation to 2. So it's going the other way. And you can see here, obviously, it's still pulling a bit taut on that section. On frame 33, that needs to get set back to 0 again. So if we scrub through and just have a look at the arms, just to make sure they're not going completely tight. Oh, it's so close. That goes really tight just there, so we're going to have to shift that position. So it's just that one keyframe for the left, and on the right hand side we'll just run through as well. The right hand side positions are a bit better. They're not actually catching at all. So let's have a quick look. So it's on frame 25 where that arm goes completely level. So what I need to do there is just grab that control handle and just pull it up a little bit, just a fraction, like that, and that should hopefully stop it from going completely straight. Yeah, there we go. Now that can be occurring. That's probably occurring because the right hand is actually closer to the body than the left hand is. Note that the left hand sticks out further away from the body. It's just the way I've positioned them. So Just be aware of that. That's the reason that that's occurring. Probably what we could do is go to frame 1 and just push the arm in a little bit, like that. And that might actually keep that arm a little bit closer to the body and help it not stretch so far. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Okay, I'm going to turn ghosting off for that as well, so I'll just hit the ghost button. So now what we should be seeing is the body kind of going left to right. Like that. That's pretty good. All right, let's get some sort of head wobble going, and then basically we can finish this off. So I'm just going to hit spacebar and go back to my right view, and I'm going to select my middle spine bend control just here, and I'm going to basically keyframe this. So this is just going to be rotation. Okay, and I just want to take a look and see sort of the direction that everything is kind of moving in. So at this point, the character's at frame 1, the character's actually moving forward. So what I'm going to do is just bend the character's head back a little bit using the x-axis handle, like that, just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. I'm then going to copy that keyframe onto 17 and 33. So I'll just right click and hit copy, go to 17, hit paste, and 33, and hit paste. Okay. So now, when the character plants his foot on frame 5, okay, from this point his body starts to move forward to frame 9, like this. And then what I want is, as his body straights out to 13, I want his head to go forward. And then his head's going to return back to normal on 17. So I need to keyframe the position here on frame 9. So on rotate Z, I'm just going to right click and hit key selected. Okay, and then on 13, what I need to do is rotate his body forward, like that. Okay, so he's going to start off here. His foot plants, his body goes forward, then his head goes forward, like that, and then it goes back. And then we just repeat that again. So what I can do is actually copy this keyframe on 9. So right click and hit copy. Jump down to, in this case, 25, and paste that in. So we'll go paste. And then on frame 13, we'll paste that onto frame 29. So I'm going to select 13, right click and hit copy, and then go down to 29 and hit paste. And then it should basically go back to there. So what we should be seeing is the head is back. Okay, just to there. Now at this point, so the head's back. He puts his weight on his foot at this point, which means from here to here his body moves forward like this. Now what I want is for his head to actually be back at this point. So I basically want this position on frame 9. So I'm just going to copy that and right click and hit paste. So his head's actually back. Then what will happen is his body will kick forward pretty quickly, and then it'll snap back into place. So I just need to make sure I've done that over here as well. So on this frame, okay, I want his head to be back, then it kicks forward here, and then it kicks back again. So I just need to copy that same keyframe onto frame 25. So now what we should get is the character basically having this little wobble on his head like that. Now you can kind of tweak that by shortening the amount that it's rotating, all right, so that it doesn't kind of kick as much. Okay, the other thing you could try is actually having the hold position here So the position that the head's in for frame 9, do that on frame 5, and then have the rotation go forward on frame 9 instead of delaying it to frame 13. So this position would be on frame 9, and this position would be on frame 5. So you could try it that way. Have a play around with the different timings, because that's going to help you kind of achieve different movement styles. Okay, so you can see that's a little bit kind of jerky at the moment, but basically, yeah, if you space those out a little bit and adjust them, then you can kind of get a slightly more fluid movement. And also, if you don't kind of move the head forward so far on these frames, so 13 and 29, if you only have it move forward a little bit, so if I kind of bring that like that, so that's 4.81. So if I copy that and then paste that onto here, it won't kind of look as clunky. It looks a bit more fluid. Now, technically speaking, you could also do that animation on here as well. You could do it on both of these, and that'll add a little bit more flexing throughout the entire can instead of it just being the top half. You know, so you can actually kind of get a little bit of wobble going with that one as well. Okay, that's pretty much it. That's basically our can, like our super basic introductory walk cycle. That's pretty much all we need to do. Now, what you can do with this is create a play blast. If you right click in your timeline and go to your play blast options, you can export a play blast out using this option. That's the option I tend to use. Okay, you can put in whatever name you want there, and it'll try and save it into your your movies folder. So if I hit play blast, okay, it's going to go through and render that, and then normally what it'll do is it'll open it up in whatever player you're using. It might not necessarily do that automatically for me now, but yeah, normally that would open up in, say, QuickTime. And if I open this up in VLC, you can see that there. All right. So that's basically what you'll get, is a copy of whatever you're seeing on screen. If you don't want to show the handles just there, what you do is you go to Show and turn off NURBS Curves. And then you can basically just replay blast that again. So just right click and hit play blast. It'll ask you to go over the original. You just say OK. It'll export that out. And then basically you'll end up with the same movement without the without any of the handles. So at a basic level, that's all you need to do. For those of you that are interested in batch rendering this out, then you can check, we've done some batch rendering in other projects, so you can always check back notes and reference videos on that process. So I'm going to leave this video here because we've just gone about 34 minutes. So yeah, that's sort of just like an ultra basic walk cycle, just to give you a rough idea of some of the processes involved. It's pretty generic. It's not really super stylized or energetic or anything, but it'll give you an idea roughly of sort of how to get your characters moving a bit. Don't forget, when you do your play blasts and so on, you want to shorten this down to 32 frames. That'll stop it from kind of clicking at the end, giving sort of like a weird clicking kind of movement. So you'll get a little bit more of a smoother playback without that extra frame in. So you can see that there. It's kind of seamless, looping off this side back to this side. Okay, so I hope you've learned a bit from this, and hopefully you'll come up with some nice little basic walk cycles yourselves. I'm going to leave this here, and I'll see you all again soon.